Chapter 15. Batman was here. Viki wanted to yell out loud. She might have to. She might have too, if the Joker's gang wasn't still surrounding her. She had kept her cool until now, looking for a chance to escape somehow before the Joker had her disfigured or killed. But they had watched her too closely. There had been no chance of doing anything until now. The Batman stood on a rooftop across the street. He fired a pair of lines into the grass of Gotham Square and swooped down between them, landing only a dozen feet away. The Joker's goons tried to stop him, first with their guns, then with their bodies in their fists. Batman got by them as if they weren't even there. That's when the Joker grabbed the mayor. He stuck his revolver against Borg's temple. "Damn," he yelled cheerfully. "I got a good one for you, Bats. What's red and bloody and has no brains?" Batman didn't answer him. He stepped toward the Joker instead. Mayor Borg was sweating and sputtering. The Joker jammed the muzzle tighter against the mayor's skull. It looked like the Batman didn't care what the Joker did. He vaulted up onto the stage and started to walk behind the Joker. The Joker swung the mayor around so that he could watch his adversary's moves. "I didn't know bats came out in the daytime," he called. The Batman stopped his circling. He stood, staring at the Joker, every muscle knotted and tense as if he was about to explode. "Just when murderous clowns leave the circus," he replied. "Let the mayor go." "Oh, can I keep him?" the Joker whined. "I'll feed him, honest." Batman wasn't particularly impressed by the villain's sarcasm. "What do you want from this city?" he demanded. The Joker looked skyward for an instant, as if lost in thought. "I want a new bicycle," he began slowly. "I want to visit Florida. I want..." This had gone far enough. Viki stood here too long as the helpless observer. There was something else she could do, something the Joker hadn't even asked for. She raised her camera. "Let me get this, Joker." The Joker swiveled both himself and the mayor around for the best possible photo opportunity. Viki took the picture with the brightest flash gun she had. Batman snapped his fingers. "Joker!" The Joker looked back at him. The Batman was less than 3 feet away. Somehow, in the instant it had taken Viki to snap the photo, Batman had crossed the stage. He waved one of his gloved hands. There was something in it. A playing card. A Joker card. Batman punched the madman in the face as the Joker stared. The mayor fled as the Joker staggered back. He shook it off in an instant, turning his stagger into a dance as the rest of his goons lost themselves in the crowd. Finally, well clear of striking distance, he stopped and grinned at Batman. "The odds are even," he declared, "so I'm leaving. You got your toys, I got mine." He jumped onto the statue platform and was instantly surrounded by great plumes of colored smoke. A dozen Roman candles flew from the smoke, ascending into the heavens. Batman started for the statue, but stopped before he was halfway across the stage. He knew, Viki realized, by the time he could reach the statue, the Joker would be long gone. Instead, Batman moved for the corner of Gotham Square, where the Joker had left his van. The goons piled in and took off before he could get off the stage. Viki lifted her camera again to take a close-up of the Batman. "Thanks," he told her. "So, we're even," Viki replied. I don't owe you anything." "Whatever you say," Batman replied neutrally. "What do you mean by that?" It was impossible to tell. There was no way you could read somebody's emotions when half their face was covered by a mask. Still, maybe she shouldn't have talked about being even. She didn't realize until she blurted that out how guilty she still felt about what she had done after the first time he had rescued her. If that's all she felt about the Batman, maybe the Batman wasn't trying to tell her anything at all. Maybe she was just trying to tell herself something about the Batman. It had taken her only a moment to think of all this, but in that moment, the Batman had shot another line aloft and disappeared back onto the roofs. Viki quickly took a photo of his disappearing form. That was her job, after all. And you didn't have any film on the camera? She felt bad enough without Allie Knox rubbing it in. She had been under a little duress after all. But they would have been great shots. No one had gotten a really good close-up of the Batman before. In fact, they still hadn't gotten a good close-up. It was the kind of mistake a film student would make. She felt terrible about it. How could she explain? This goon handed it to me. Was the way she tried. I didn't check. How could she tell Allie how shaken she had been, first from the excessive attentions of the Joker, then from the cold reaction of the Batman? She decided she couldn't. Oh, Allie, I'm really losing it. Was what she said. Instead, she sat heavily on the edge of the desk and stared down at her shoes. Allie took pity on her and didn't pursue it any further. Instead, he patted her on the shoulder. I found out about your strange street corner, he said softly. She looked up at him. Your friend Bruce is pretty screwed up, he added, a touch of apology in his voice. Oh, great. This is all she needed to hear. More good news? She asked without much enthusiasm. He waved to her to follow him across the office to the microfilm reader. She stood and slowly crossed the room to stand behind him as he twirled the knob on the side of the machine, searching for the proper page. Okay? He said at last, here we go. He stepped out of the way. Check it out. Viki stared at the screen. This time Knox had found something important. It was the front page of the Gotham Globe 20-odd years ago. A banner headline screamed across the front page. Thomas Wayne murdered. Prominent doctor, wife slain in robbery. Unidentified gunman leaves child unharmed. But it was the photograph beneath that headline that told the real story. A pair of cops leaned over a pair of corpses. Behind them, medics stood with stretchers. But off to one side was a young boy, maybe 10 years old, his arms wrapped around the waist of another cop. The boy, Viki realized, was Bruce Wayne. But it was that look on his face, a wild look full of anger and despair, as if he had gotten a glimpse at the end of the world. That struck her. It was the same look she had seen on Bruce's face the other day in Gotham Square. Some snap, huh? Knox's voice pulled her from her reverie. Oh my God, she said, finding her voice. His parents were murdered in that alley. That's why he went there. She glanced up at Allie before she turned back to Bruce's photo, drawn to the frightened boy. It was the anniversary of their death. Yep, Knox agreed, looking at the screen over her shoulder. Poor kid watched the whole thing happen. Allie, she replied, as if speaking the words aloud might force some reason out of them. The look on his face, it's just like that day with the Joker in front of City Hall. But why? She asked herself. Could it have been the sudden violence bringing back the memories? Or was there more than that? Can you imagine what this could do to a guy, Viki? Knox asked. For a change, there was genuine sympathy in his voice. She could imagine, but she wasn't going to tell Allie everything just yet. This could explain a lot about Bruce's behavior. She remembered seeing that odd belt on the kitchen table. She'd been so happy, too, in that moment when she'd rushed home from Gotham Square to find that the Joker hadn't left a corpse behind. But there had been no sign of Bruce since. No note, no phone calls, no assurances that he was fine, or any questions after his welfare. Why? She realized this photo might explain more than just Bruce. She remembered a talk they had at Wayne Manor about finding your true purpose in life. Allie, she asked slowly, trying to keep the question as neutral as possible, does it say how old the father was when he was killed? Knox nodded, like it was the most natural question in the world. Yeah, I noticed that too. He was a young guy, just turned 35. 35? Bruce was 35. All her doubts left her. It had to be. She grabbed her coat and camera bag. I've gotta go. She backed out of Allie's office. Okay. Knox smiled affably and waved goodbye. Don't let your personal feelings interfere with your job. Poor Allie. He was still playing the wounded sir. It was much too late for that. Viki just hoped it wasn't too late for Bruce. Bruce woke suddenly. He had fallen asleep on the map of a Gotham City. He had been staring at it, hoping somehow that the maze of streets and buildings would somehow open up to show him the Joker. He looked up. 30 video monitors looked back at him, showing only empty rooms. 30 in all. There was a slightest of noises behind him. He quickly glanced back. Alfred was quietly folding the cape of his uniform. That meant the butler must have brought what he'd asked for. Follow my parents? Bruce managed. Alfred solemnly nodded toward the manila folder on the corner of the desk. Even half asleep, Bruce noticed the butler was unusually quiet. What's on your mind, Alfred? I'm getting old, sir, the butler replied, and I don't want to fill my days grieving for old friends or their sons. Bruce conceded that Alfred had a point, but it was far too late to change his course of action now. It had probably been far too late on the day his parents died. There was only one thing he could do. One real reason that the Batman had come into existence, and the Batman had to fulfill his destiny. Bruce asked Alfred if he might have some coffee. He opened the file. They had the press conference on the steps of Gotham City Hall. That in itself was significant. Yesterday, Commissioner Gordon knew Mayor Borg would have led any press conference from the newly built reviewing stand across the street in Gotham Square. The mayor wanted that stand and the celebration surrounding it to begin a renewal of all that was good about their city. But the Joker had changed all that. His murderous actions had instead turned the reviewing stand into a symbol for crime and anarchy, all the things that were wrong with Gotham. And in a way, even though the Batman frightened him off, the Joker could claim a victory. Tomorrow, the city would tear that podium down. Borg cleared his throat and spoke into the dozen microphones on the stand before him. The 200th anniversary gala has been indefinitely postponed. That's all the mayor could bring himself to say. He stepped aside and let Harvey Dent, the new voice of Gotham City, take center stage. Commissioner Gordon never thought he would see the day when Mayor Borg could not talk forever about whatever glory or tragedy had affected Gotham. But this renewal of the city had been the mayor's personal fantasy, something he could leave behind for posterity in the history books. Failure here pointed to the failure of his whole political career. For the first time since he had shared political office with Borg, Gordon realized, he actually felt sorry for the mayor. Then looked straight into the central television camera and began to speak. We're vehemently opposed to terrorism in any form, but a toxin has been found in the coffee at the police stations. With 2/3 of our police force disabled, we simply cannot guarantee public safety. Dent hesitated. Somebody had run out of one of the mobile video trucks and was yelling at the cameraman. Gordon glanced over at the mayor. Borg started to whimper. The commissioner ran down the steps to see what the problem was. He joined a group of technicians clustered around a monitor. What's going on? He demanded. See for yourself, a thin, balding fellow replied. This monitor shows the feed going on onto all the local stations, but only half of that picture is ours. Gordon looked at the monitor for himself. The screen was split down the middle, with the left half showing the scene at City Hall. The right half was blank, showing nothing but video snow. But then a picture formed in the snow and solidified to show the figure of a man sitting in an armchair in a drawing room. Gordon recognized the figure in the chair only when the picture came into focus. It was the Joker. Joker here? The Joker smiled convivially. Rather than a bizarre combination of dead white and flaming red, his face was a neutral flesh color. It almost made him look human. Now, he continued, his tone slightly chiding, you guys have said some pretty mean things. Some of which I admit were true under that fiend Boss Grissom. He was a terrorist and a thief, but on the other hand, he was great at bridge. Anyway, he's dead. And he left me in charge. Joker paused and leaned toward the camera. Now, I can be theatrical, maybe even a little rough. But there is one thing I'm not. I'm not a killer. I'm an artist. He leaned even closer so that his grin filled the screen. And I love a party. So, truce, guys. He retreated. The camera retreated as he spread his arms wide. Commence our festival! His announcement was greeted by applause. Canned applause. I even got a little present for Gotham City. Joker continued, his voice rising with excitement. At midnight, I drop $20 million cash on the crowd. He waved his hands again, this time as a gesture of humility. I've got plenty, he added, so don't worry about me. The mayor had taken the microphone back on his side of the screen. We are not prepared to discuss any deals, he began. You heard me, folks, the Joker interrupted. $20 million. The Joker stood, placing his thumbs behind the lapels of his double-breasted suit coat. And there will be entertainment, he cheered. The big fight. Me in one corner and in the other, the man who has brought real terror to this city. He paused dramatically, his eyes wide with feigned fright. Batman. The left-hand side of the screen showed Borg and Dent glance at each other in surprise. The Joker leaned into the screen. "Can you hear me, Batman?" he asked in a stage whisper. "Just you and me. Mano a mano. I've taken off my makeup. Let's see if you can take off yours." Bruce shut off the TV. He had seen enough. He went back to the police file, the one on his parents. The cover had a large blue stamp across it. Unsolved. But it wasn't. Not anymore. The first thing in the file was the newspaper article and the picture of Bruce as a boy. He remembered. There had been a radio playing somewhere. It was a hot summer night. A woman laughed, the sound drifting from a second-story window. He was walking with his mother and father down the streets of Gotham City. It was a special night. They had been to see a show, and Bruce had been allowed to stay up well past his bedtime. It was such a fine night. His father decided they should walk for a bit before they got in a cab. He remembered the quick footsteps behind him. He remembered his mother in his hushed voice next to him. "Tom, there's someone following us." Somehow the three of them had started running, but they stopped when they ran into the alley. He remembered the two young hoods. One of them had a gun. He grabbed the string of pearls around his mother's neck. The father tried to grab the young punk's arm, though with a gunshot. He remembered his father falling. He remembered his mother screaming. A second gunshot. He could still see the fire from the muzzle of the gun, so bright in that dark alley, and he saw mother fall dead. Both his mother and father were dead. He remembered. The kid without the gun ran away, but the other one pointed his revolver right at Bruce. "Tell me, kid." The kid with the gun started. He remembered that too. The young punk stepped forward so that Bruce could see him better in the moonlight. He smiled. Bruce remembered that smile. A Joker's smile. The punk spoke. "You ever danced with the devil by the pale moonlight?" The young Jack Napier's finger pressed lightly on the trigger. Nothing happened. "Come on!" A voice yelled out of the darkness. It was the voice of the other punk, Bruce realized now. "Let's go!" The other voice insisted. Jack Napier walked slowly from the alleyway, laughing all the time. Bruce remembered the laughter. Alfred let Viki in. Bruce was there, asleep in an overstuffed chair. He looked as though he was having a nightmare, his head tossed from side to side, his face covered with sweat. He moaned softly, the noise coming from deep in his throat. Viki wondered if she should try to wake him up. She took a step toward the chair. His eyes snapped open. "It was him," he said coyly. Viki walked quickly to his side. "You alright?" He blinked at her, disoriented, as if he wasn't completely awake. "How'd you get in here?" he managed burly. "Alfred," Viki replied. The butler nodded to her as he left the room. It had seemed so simple on the way over here. There were things that had come out in the open now, for Bruce's sake and for both of them. She had to say it now, or it would never come out. Am I crazy? She began. Once she started, the words came pouring out. That wasn't just another night for either of us, was it? We got to each other, didn't we? Maybe she was going too fast. Was she making sense? Bruce closed a folder that had been spread on the table before him. One word, unsolved, was stamped in blue on the cover. He sat up in his chair and looked directly at her. You were going to tell me something at my apartment, she asked, fumbling a bit under Bruce's gaze. When the Joker came, what was it? Bruce looked away. But she wouldn't let him go. Not now. Not after all this. Why wouldn't he understand? Why won't you let me in? She asked. He stood up, then, in a quick fluid movement, as if there was something inside him that his muscles could no longer contain. His eyes looked back into hers. Maybe, Viki realized, he hadn't understood after all. You got in already, he replied. My God, Viki thought. Is he saying what I think he's saying? She had prepared all these answers for him, all these reasoned arguments, for all the objections he could throw against her. The only thing she wasn't ready for was what he had just said. I don't know what to think of all this, she confessed. You said you got to a place where you just had to live with the way you were. He waved his hands outward, soft to the room around him. Well, that's this place. She wasn't sure if he meant all of Wayne Manor or what was going on inside his own head. In a way, she supposed he could mean both. Who'd be the first person to talk about it then? To live with the way you were. It was strange. Bruce being so open like this. She had to be open with him too. As open as she could be. I loved you. Every night since I met you. She said, but I don't know if I could love you dead. So she had talked about it in a way, Bruce's other self, but she still hadn't mentioned the name, Batman. Still, Bruce knew exactly what she meant. I can't help you with that. He took a step forward, then stopped again. I've been trying to avoid all this. But that's the way it is. His mouth twisted up into a faintest hint of a smile. I wear a cape. You take pictures. It's not a perfect world. It doesn't have to be a perfect world. Viki replied quickly, realizing in a way that Batman was beside the point. I just gotta know if we're going to try to love each other. Bruce stood there, looked at her. Viki realized that through this whole conversation, they had still kept their distance. Why were they so afraid of touching? Maybe it would make this all too real. He's out there tonight, was all Bruce would say to her. So even now he was thinking about the Joker. No, I've got to go to work. He left her with a smile, retreating to the shadows of the far end of the study. She heard a door open and close. She was alone. What had happened here? She thought about what Bruce had said about this not being a perfect world. She was a photographer. She kept life at a distance in a way. She controlled her surroundings by what she chose to see through her camera lens. In a way, Bruce did the same thing. He took on a new identity to control his surroundings, except that his surroundings were a lot more violent because perhaps of what had happened to him so long ago. She wasn't worried about Bruce anymore. Well, she was still afraid for his physical safety, especially with someone as crazy as Joker. But she understood why he had to be the Batman. She also hoped he could accomplish everything he had set out to do. She took a sip from her neglected drink. Just come back to me, Bruce. Now that they had found each other, two crazy people in a crazy world, maybe they could make the world work for them. And maybe they could even learn to live together in a world that was all too real. The Joker was Jack Napier. Batman could no longer remember the moment he made that realization. He had been poring over the maps and the police files, or he had had a dream. He had been in the Batcave or dozing in his study. He had been only half awake for the longest time, really. Now that he had the answer, everything fell into place. He no longer needed to sleep. All his fatigue was gone. His weakness forgotten. It was nighttime. Bats went out at night. He put on his gloves, his boots, his cape and cowl, and then his belt, a brilliant yellow oval surrounding the emblem of a bat. The Joker had challenged him. Tonight, he would meet that challenge. He climbed into his car and headed for the Axis Chemical Company.